Hi, welcome to Conservative Solutions for Our Common Challenges. My name is Dan Albus. I serve as the Member of Parliament for Okanagan Lake West, South Kelowna, in the beautiful interior of British Columbia. This podcast is about the people who roll up their sleeves, confront difficult problems with both clarity and compassion. They bring real-world solutions to help Canadians build better lives. These conversations inspire me because no matter the challenge, there are always people quietly doing the hard work to make things better, and I hope you're inspired by them too. Today, we're talking about home building, the trades, affordability, and what it'll take to keep the Okanagan a place where young people, workers, and families can put down roots and build a future. We'll even talk about the importance of home ownership. And I'm joined today by two individuals whose leadership comes not just from expertise, but from lived experience. We have Krista Payne. She's the president of the Central Okanagan Home Builders Association. And also we have with us Cassie DeVere, the executive director of the same organization. And I'm just so happy to have the two of you here to talk about all these things.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank
Great.
you.
Thank you.
So we'll start, Krista, maybe with you.
Sure.
How did you get involved in home construction? And what the heck are you doing heading up the Canadian Home Builders Association in the Central Okanagan?
Yeah, thank you for asking. My dad started Ian Payne Construction in the 70s, ran it for many decades, and I joined forces with him in 2012 and started offering our clients design, build, and design renovate. Succeeded at getting my red seal in carpentry 6 years ago. And started kind of connecting throughout the industry. I actually met Cassidy 9 years ago, I guess it was, and she kind of talked me into the board of directors and brought it up and how exciting it would be. So I was elected to the board of directors and worked my way up to president, now serving my third year.
Great. Well, and so again, Cassidy, with you, what got you into construction? And why the Canadian Home Builders Association? Why the Central Okanagan?
Yeah, similar to Krista, I grew up in a construction household, and so many in our industry find you get brought in by family, whether it's an aunt, an uncle, grandparent, parents. So I was used to hanging out on a job site as a kid, and so as life progressed, it made sense to get into the construction industry, into the field, and I was actually our first female president of our association, and then I went and recruited some more, and I told Krista that the exciting part of it was that I was the first female, but I wouldn't be the last or the best, so was able to bring in a lot more females to our board, and was very happy. We were half females, half male builders on our board, and so it was just quite exciting. Kelowna's unique in that sense. So,
well, I imagine your board meetings must be a lot of fun because every time I go to one of your events, everyone is so focused on building things up, working together. Has that been your experience in your industry?
Absolutely, yeah. I think we all become a lot more successful the more we work together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, for yourself, Krista, you've been a real advocate for getting more women in the trades. I know because I saw you at the Jill of All Trades event at Okanagan College, where you gave a completely packed room of young women who actually were quiet to listen. You could hear a pin drop to hear you talk about your story. So maybe you can talk about that program and also what you're trying to do as a local leader to bring more women into the trades.
Yeah, absolutely. So the program's called Jill of All Trades. It goes and invites grade 9 to 12 female high school students for an entire day at Okanagan College doing the trade programs. They get to pick their top 3. They get to make little projects in each of those. It's a fun day. There's candy and keynote speakers, and then all of the. I'm a member of the Women in Construction for Central Okanagan, as well as on the National Women in Construction for Canada. And I'm just very passionate on getting more females in the industry. It's such a fantastic industry. So this Jill of All Trades is a great opportunity to teach younger females what a future could look like. And they have a blast. Out of the first 144 females that attended, I think they had 28 sign up for the trades program.
Well, good on you, and also good on Okanagan College for putting the program on.
Absolutely.
Now, someone who is advocating for more women in trades, both nationally and locally, what are some of the things that we need to do a better job, whether it be in government or society, or at the school level? What are some of the things that we need to do better to let women know that the trades is a great thing? Because both of you have been very accomplished in that area.
Yeah, I think we're working on lots of opportunities right now. There's another event called Try a Trade. That seems to, it's the same idea, grade 9 to 12 students, female and male, but brings their parents along. And I think that's a huge thing that was maybe missing in the past, is having the parent support behind those students who are interested in trades. It's so key in this industry. I know that Okanagan College in Kelowna is also looking at developing a program where the trades program with 1 or 2 more years of education will become a business program. So that is starting to attract a lot more. I feel like it'll attract a lot more students whose maybe parents are saying, I'd prefer you get a business degree. They're gonna go, I can do trades and then a business degree. And it'll just attract way more opportunities.
So in the last couple of years, the Conservative Party of Canada has proposed sending more trades-focused materials directly into schools, making students actually hear about these opportunities as early as possible. Would something like that, in your opinion, make a difference?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the schools are really suffering. A lot of them, schools and university or schools in the trade colleges haven't had any increase in funding, yet material costs continue to rise. So now they're relying a lot on donations of materials, and lots of different CHBAs work really closely with their colleges. I know TRU and the Home Builders Association in Central Interior have a great program together that they work really well, building a house together every year. And so it's a lot of that partnership that really helps. And I am seeing a lot of parents really questioning, how AI is going to impact the future careers that they maybe thought their kids would be getting into. And, the concern about going to university, getting a degree in something, and that job being gone by the time they're finished, where they know with trades that's not happening. We're not getting, painters aren't going to get replaced by robots in the next 2 years. And so, whether it's electricians or plumbers or anything, you're always going to need someone to come into your home and repair it. And that's not going to change in our generation anyways.
A former executive director for Polytechnics Canada once told me, she said, Dan, you got to understand that the trades are the know-how economy. Like the knowledge economy, there's always going to be a place for that. I think with the AI, you're saying that may not be always true because what used to take a legion of coders now can be done very quickly with AI. But that know-how economy, how to build a dam, how to build an apartment building, many of these skills are interchangeable and are, quite frankly, in demand. So what other things do you think that the two of you think that we should be doing, whether it be at government or just society-wise, to encourage more pickup of the trades?
I think that just probably a reform of how, the Red Seal programs are rolled out. And I understand that would be challenging to do because it's a standard you can take across the world and get a Red Seal. But, more micro-credentials and more, awareness that, you're a carpenter, but that's not the same in all means. Framers build a house and it's very different knowledge than a finishing carpenter. Someone who's hanging a door is different than someone who's putting in a foundation. So just really understanding that in our industry, there's so much variation in these roles and our training needs to change to adapt to it. Because right now, if you go, to get your Red Seal, you are learning literally everything from building concrete stairs to building a door by hand to whatever. And it's very rare in your career that you will ever actually do all of those things. So understanding that we need to have different segments to the construction industry.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, in Kelowna, and I'm talking about from Statistics Canada, they said in December there was quite an uptick in unemployment. A lot of it was due to construction. So, when you say things like the impacts of EI, we're also seeing in our local labor market where there's a lot of hurt right now.
Yes.
What are some of the things that the federal government should be looking at right now to support workers and to also encourage more building of housing? Because as far as I checked in the last election, all parties were talking about housing.
I had the question even today of, I thought housing starts were up, but a lot of those are projects that were started many years ago. It takes a long time to get through the development process, to get your permits in place and to actually get started. And so, and even then, a lot of them were purpose-built rental, subsidized housing, and which again are an important segment of, the housing continuum, but we've completely abandoned for-market housing for ownership housing, and it's creating a lot of economic problems and job losses across the country.
Well, absolutely. And I was on Chris Walker's Daybreak South a couple of weeks ago, and he was asking about the unemployment rate and what policies we could do specifically to help Kelowna area. And again, when I say Kelowna, it's the census metropolitan area. So it's a grouping of all the communities from Peachland up through Lake Country. But one of the things I did say, and again, this is in regards, December, Kelowna had the highest unemployment in Canada. In January, they changed it down to number 4, but that's still very, very high in a big country like Canada. And one of the things I had said originally was a proposal to axe the GST on new homes that were under $1.3 million. Now, I'd like to hear about what your organization and what you two would think that would do, not just for Canada, but for the Okanagan.
Yeah, absolutely. So on the average new construction, about 30% of the cost is government fees, taxes, levies between all 3 levels of government. So it is a massive chunk of why homes are so expensive. And I always use the analogy of we figured out in a grocery store how to tax things properly. So we don't tax bread, but we charge both taxes on Oreos. Things that are considered, a luxury, not a necessity, we tax. So why can't we do that in the hardware store? Why can't we say, shingles are important. You have to be able to repair your roof. And the basic shingles, maybe not the most expensive roof you can possibly buy. Same with toilets. Like toilets are essential to human life. And so which ones of these things are we going to say, similar to food, shelter is also very important. And do we need to be taxing them the same? I've heard other expressions that we tax housing the way we do cigarettes and alcohol, which is an interesting way of looking at it. But when you look at the numbers, it's quite alarming. So there's projects in the Okanagan where if the land was free, they're still not going forward because it's still too expensive to build. And the single biggest line item in there is either DCCs or GST from a housing perspective.
And that's really interesting you raise that because during the election, we made this proposal, let's get rid of the GST on new home construction under 1.3 million. And so people would say to me, well, how is that going to be any different? And the reason for it is when a builder, and this is what I understand, so please correct me if I'm wrong, goes to get financing, that initial construction financing, it's very difficult to do, and they factor in the GST up front. So if you were to axe that and just take that line item away, you would actually see a lot of projects that meet the thresholds the banks want to see so that they can finance them. And so that would actually create more supply of housing. And to think about it, when you speak to a realtor, there's the realtor, there's the lawyers, there's the mortgage brokers, and then you get into the trades of the carpentry, the plumbing, et cetera, and then you add in the retail stores that are selling new carpet and new furniture. So it's almost like, again, it just goes like a wave through the economy. So do you think that Kelowna particularly would benefit from this policy?
Absolutely, yeah. We also pay GST on top of PST in BC. So BC is considered a cost of doing business. And so, yeah, you pay GST. Just paying tax on top of tax. So, absolutely, it would make a huge difference. And that was proven with purpose-built rental. And so that made a huge difference. And I think, the way government should look at housing is more of a dial and less of a switch. Because when often, it's like, we don't like this, we need to stop it. It's a switch. And instead, a dial would make more sense. And so the GST was brought in, I think, in like 1992, where the threshold was, well, no one was really paying it anyways. Given the house of the threshold, it should have been moving up with inflation, and instead it wasn't. It was just left at the same threshold. And so I think that should be a better focus of government to say, okay, if the housing market is too hot, let's not just shut it down, which is what happened. And so it was too hot in 2021, and you saw interest rates went all the way up, and you saw BC's provincial government put in so many more regulations, and now it's been completely shut off.
So in regards to this, there has been some movement. So I'll give the Liberal government a little bit of credit. It was because Conservatives supported a piece of legislation, not only to get rid of the consumer carbon tax, something that we've long advocated for, it also reduced for first-time homebuyers the GST. But it's a little bit different how they structured it. It's a rebate at the back end of the process. In terms of what your organization thinks about the rebate program, where are you at with that?
Well, I think an interesting thing too is that the government doesn't actually know how many first-time home buyers there are in a given year, and so really hard to measure the impact that that's going to have when it's an unknown number. You can get that information from the individual banks, but that number's not known, so it's really hard to determine whether or not that's going to have a massive impact. Where right now having a GST rebate on all housing under a threshold would help a lot of first-time buyers looking to buy maybe more of a townhouse. And so, understanding that the market isn't just a big luxury single-family house and a condo, that there's that whole middle ground type of housing, and that first-time home buyers might be anywhere in that continuum. But also, when you have someone move out from a townhouse into a single family, it opens up that townhouse for someone to move in from a condo. And so, it's not a bad thing to let someone from the townhouse move into the single family. So that way it kind of allows more flow in the market and allows people to move up. Where right now a lot of people feel very, very stuck where they are. They feel like I'm going to be renting forever in an area where maybe, the rent might even be higher than what a mortgage would be.
Yeah, well, we have a lot of seniors in the Okanagan, and oftentimes, they want to actually downgrade. And so if you could allow them where they could get into a smaller townhouse, and usually they have the money to pay for it because they're selling a much larger property that's accrued over time. This would be an attractive thing if they didn't have to pay GST. But of course, as an existing home buyer, that would make room for someone else to move in, like a family, to be able to set roots and take the older, larger home. This would be perfect for them. To me, I'm also quite concerned, though, is for first responders, nurses, care aides, and whatnot. If you're going to keep them in a community, they have to have a place they can set long-term roots in.
Yeah.
Or else they're just going to constantly be looking to, where's the cheapest, properties in Canada, and they won't make places like Kelowna, West Kelowna their home.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And that's the challenge with densification and infill. And so, infill is great and it is what we need, but it's very expensive. It's way more expensive. And so when you look at the type of housing that a family wants to live in, it's not going to be a small condo. And so a lot of municipalities have tried being like, yes, we're going to do infill, and we've provided a lot of information of just how expensive infill actually is. And so are people going to choose that infill housing at a really high price, or are they going to go further out of town and take that larger property at a lower price and then commute? Which is what we're seeing a lot in the Okanagan as well. I participated in the City of Lake Country's OCP, and there was many people around there of like, we don't want to just be Kelowna's bedroom, of like people just, staying here, but, living and really spending most of their time in Kelowna, and, having each community be able to be vibrant and house everyone in their community. And you need housing of all type.
Yeah, and speaking of all types, this is provincial, but I think it's somewhat related. Short-term rental restrictions. So many tourism hospitality businesses in Central Okanagan have said the rules have been hurting their ability to operate and to retain their staff. So what are you hearing from your members about that? Is there a position that you have on short-term rentals?
Yeah, there's definitely concern with when you own a piece of land and you put permits in and you get approvals from a municipality. For, let's say, Airbnb. So there's projects in the Okanagan that, the whole building is for Airbnb. It's essentially a hotel owned by the community instead of a hotel owned by a conglomerate. That's what it was approved for. And so anytime you get different zoning changes to a property you already own, it causes a lot of uncertainty, and it causes a lot of hesitation in buyers as well, because people bought those units saying, like, I'm buying basically a hotel room to use for an Airbnb, which it is allowed for, and that's why I'm buying it. And then to be told later you're not allowed to use it for that. And so it creates more hesitation to invest in housing, which is something that's very important. And short-term rentals offer things for communities. If you need to come in for healthcare reasons, if you have, the university has people all the time come in for 3 weeks or 6 weeks. And now where are they supposed to go? So unfortunately, I think it's, again, one of those light switch type of policies when a dial probably would have been more effective. And usually, our municipality, the pendulum swung one way and they're really slow to bring it back. Instead of just taking a measured approach in the first place, we wouldn't have to be reassessing it all. so
I
quickly.
really like, Cassidy, how you've been talking to, instead of a light switch, it to being a dial, because the person that's asking the province to dial it back and to give more control to the city of Kelowna is Conservative MLA Gavin Dew. So you think that allowing that more flexibility so that people have certainty of what can be used and what they can build, that's a good thing for the Okanagan.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, that's good. Well, the last thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is we had another proposal in the platform, and it does touch on housing and development and whatnot, and it was called the Canada First Reinvestment Tax Cut. So it essentially would allow people or businesses to defer their capital gains tax if they reinvested those proceeds into Canada, including into new housing. So I got a ton of positive feedback from realtors, farmers, and builders. Often older properties stay off the market because the owners, they don't want to get hit with a large, stiff capital gain. In your view, would this kind of re-incentive initiative help free up more land, spur more redevelopment, and possibly create some more supply from your members?
Absolutely. There's different pieces of property being held in different cities. Again, I'll use Lake Country, for example. There's a large portion of that community is owned by someone else, and the city is just waiting for them to decide what they want to do with it. And so I think anything that incentivizes a reinvestment, and so not just, you get your money out and it's fine, but a reinvestment into something else. It could be purpose-built rental. I know there was others in Kelowna trying to do market housing, but the landowner would retain a certain percentage of the home, and then upon the sale, then they would get their money, so it would defer their taxes later. But again, projects like that are really challenging because again, the cost to build is just so high. Yeah. So it's even if land was free, sometimes it's still not penciling out.
So we've talked about a lot of things. So when you look at the biggest obstacles to getting more homes built, so we have things like labor shortages, permitting delays, financing challenges, inflation. What are the top barriers in your perspective? Maybe we'll start with you, Krista.
I think labor shortages is a very a big one. Understanding the future in trades is bright. People still need to understand that. They need to learn from an earlier age. You can get started in high school now. You can get almost most of your education covered through grants and stuff, and then you can come out at 22 to 25 and have a career and have a future and be potentially closer to buying a house, be helping build that house, which is obviously very rewarding for a lot of people. But getting way more people in trades is, I think, would make a big difference moving forward.
Great. Cassie, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I would say it's just the ability for people to buy a home. And so when you look at the amount of money that Build Canada Homes is getting versus if you would have just put that into a down payment fund and given people interest-free down payments to buy or build a home, eventually they'd have to pay it back when they sold it. But the down payment is the barrier for a lot of people unless you have wealthy family members that can help you out, unless you can live at home rent-free for a period of time. It is very hard for people to put together that down payment. And a lot of people are choosing, I also want to live life. I don't want to, be strapped for 10 plus years doing absolutely nothing just so I can own a home. It's a big challenge. And so I think tackling that kind of down payment piece would make way more sense. Government should not be building housing at all. That's been proven all across the world. I mean, look at BC Housing as an example of what not to do. Market has a tough enough time doing it. The government's not going to be more efficient or effective at it. So government should own housing, absolutely. That makes sense, but shouldn't be building it.
And that's a really interesting thing because, I'll door knock during an election and I'll meet a lot of young people that say exactly that. They're making really good money, but they don't have the bank of mom and dad. Mm-hmm. And so what are they doing? They're leaving places like West Kelowna, and they're going to cheaper places where they can afford maybe someday to buy. Mm-hmm. And again, it's not an easy choice for people that want to stay close to their children and grandchildren. They're going farther and farther afield. Mm-hmm. I have a nephew that's left for Calgary. And so that, I think that experience, and what really concerns me, is first of all, I want young people, I have family, I want young people to be able to stay in the Okanagan so they can have that better life, because it's a beautiful place to live. But I also worry as the Okanagan ages, who's going to look after us? Who's going to staff as care aides and dental hygienists and nurses that do a lot of the work that makes it so that you can age gracefully in a beautiful place like Kelowna.
Yes.
Anyway, but it does seem to me that government programs, whether they be provincial or federal, are only touching upon the socialized, I should say, the subsidized housing component and not really on market. So if you guys had one magic wand where you could make one wish, what would you do? What would you ask as an organization to have the federal or provincial government do?
I would say to incentivize and empower the first-time home buyers. So the stress test is a big one that's locking a lot of people out. People are signing, that's an easier one to change right away. I know, obviously, if funds were unlimited, then it'll give people the down payments. But fixing the stress test right away could unlock more people's ability, because I even talked to a lot of adults that were like, they went and sold their house thinking they'd do something else, and now they can't get a mortgage. And they're like, what the heck? Like, what do you mean I can't get a mortgage? So it's very, very challenging for sure. And again, like you say, people that make good money should be able to have this.
Yeah. And so I just want to thank both of you for your leadership in the Okanagan. Not only do you lead a great organization that, like I said, when I go to your events, everyone is so focused on what they can do to grow the economy, to put people to work, to give people places to raise a family. So you should feel very proud of the work you do. But also just in terms of being a role model and encouraging, like I said earlier, Krista, when I saw you on the stage of that Jill of All Trades event and just the quiet and the excitement in a lot of those girls' faces, I think both of you, Cassidy, Krista, are doing amazing work.
Thank you
so
very much.
Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on Conservative Solutions for Our Common Challenges. These conversations remind us that policy isn't abstract. It's about people. It's about families and communities trying to build a better future. If today's conversation resonated with you, I hope you'll share it with someone. And we need more people bringing practical ideas and steady leadership to the challenges we all face. I'd like to thank my guests again for being here. And I'm Dan Albus. Thanks for listening. Thank you for caring. I'll hope to see you next time.